Hi guys, Brian from Boas here. Happy holidays everyone. In honor of the holidays this year, I'm counting down the 12 days of BOA-MAS and showing you a different locality boa every day for the 12 days of BOA-MAS. And this brings us to day 6. So be sure to stay tuned for the rest of the series if you want to see some of the beautiful animals that I'm fortunate to work with. So day 6 brings us a really cool boa. This is the long-tail boa, also known as the longicauda boa, boa constrictor longicauda, or boa imperator longicauda, depending on what classification you go by. Also known as the tombs boa for the location from which they're derived. And this is a relatively new form of boa that was described by science just a few decades ago. And probably the defining characteristic, as you can see, is the dark color. They're one of the darkest locality boas. Right up there with the Argentine boas in terms of the darkness. And what's really cool about them is they start off as babies relatively, not dark. And then with each shed they get more and more of the dark pigment until as adults they have this beautiful dark color. And the dark markings are especially striking on the face of the animal. So if you look at the head of this female, just beautiful dark head spear and beautiful dark markings on the side of her face. And then looking at the belly, you can see all of the dark pigment. So this animal did not start off looking like this. She was much lighter in color and she just got darker and darker. You can see that the background color is kind of this dark tannish color that kind of shines through. So these animals don't get purely black, but most of them have some background, dark tan color and some white markings as well. There's also an anerythristic form where the background color is more gray. They don't have any of the reddish and yellow pigments that cause the tan color. And so this is a female that was born in 2015. She actually had her first litter this year. So you can see it's a relatively small locality of boa. This female is about 5 feet long. Had a nice litter of about a dozen babies. And so this is a bloodline founded by Eugene Bisset. So there's quite a number of different bloodlines that have subtle differences in appearance, but overall they look pretty similar. And so this animal, longicauda is another great boa, and they seem to have a dedicated following, and they seem to kind of escalate in popularity. One day I'll be looking at social media and people are just going on and on about them, and then you won't hear about them for a while, and then people will be talking about them again. But I think there's definitely a cult following that's similar to like the Amarali boas. They're not quite as popular as many of the other localities, but I think among the people that like them, they're just super into them. So it's kind of like a cult following. And people will avidly track the bloodlines. So I have another bloodline, the bloodline from Vin Russo, and actually I'm breeding those this year for the first time, or attempting to breed them. So I'm not going to show you them because I don't want to interrupt the breeding. You may have seen those animals in some of my other videos, and hopefully we'll have babies to show you later this year. But that female is a little bit bigger than this one. Beautiful markings. The markings are subtly different, but just love the dark markings on these longicauda boas. Personality wise, they're pretty laid back, not overly squeezy, not overly trying to escape. Just a really cool boa. They're easy to keep, never had any issues with them feeding. The babies they all ate food really quickly. Didn't need to do any assist feeding or anything like that. And the babies were off to their new homes within a couple months, and hopefully some of you guys out there that are watching have some of her babies, and hopefully they're doing well. But just a great boa, the boa constrictor longicauda, or boa imperator longicauda. So I should say that these guys are from a small area of northern Peru, right on the border with Ecuador. And there's a town in Ecuador called Tombs or Tumbes, which is why they're sometimes referred to as the tombs boa. And then the other name, longicauda, which literally means long tail, has to do with the fact that they have the longest tail of any boa. And she's not going to let me unwrap, but just trust me that the tails are longer. Actually, the males will have the longest hemipenes of any boa. They actually probe deeper than other locality boas. So you could think of it also as the long penis boa if you want to, if you're so inclined. But look at that long tail right there in the long tail boa. This is my Basset bloodline male, and he sired the litter that I had in 2021. And so you can see it's pretty similar looking to the female. I'd say that his markings are not quite as distinct. He's maybe a little bit more of a dirty look to him, more speckling, and the saddles and facial markings aren't quite as distinct. But a really cool looking animal. And so just wanted to kind of show you his long tail. Of course, the males always have a longer tail than the females, and it's pretty obvious in adult boas. It's very easy to just visually sex them once you know what you're looking for. But if I was to compare him to other types of boas of the same length, his tail would be considerably longer. We also have the short tail boa, of course, Boa constrictor amorali, that has the shorter tail, and you would see quite a difference if we were to compare this one to a amorali. And so, as I mentioned, I have my other bloodline animals are breeding hopefully right now, and hopefully we'll have babies. Those ones are supposed to be het for anerythristic, so fingers crossed I'll have some normal as well as anerythristic Tombs boas sometime this summer. So we saw the mom and the dad boa. I thought I'd show you one of their offspring that was born back in July. So this is a 5-month-old Tombs or longicauda boa. You can see it looks quite a bit different than the adults. You can see a lot more lighter grayish brownish coloration. And then interestingly, they also have a little bit of a reddish tint, particularly in the tail. And so I expect that this animal is going to look completely different, much more like the adults I showed you, in a few years. And it's a cool transition because every time they shed, they're just a little bit darker until they reach their adult coloration. And so this is one of my holdbacks. Of course, I had to hold back a few from my litter, as to raise up as a future breeder. Really cool animals. You can see how small this animal is. Even at 5 months old, she's maybe, 18 inches. But when they're born, they're one of the smallest locality boas. They're pretty much the same size as the Tarahumara dwarf boa at birth. So real little tiny boa. Cool personality. They have been a little nippy. Once in a while they'll kind of strike out defensively, which a lot of baby boas will do. But with a boa this size, it's not going to be capable of doing any damage. So nothing to really worry about. But baby longicauda boa, great animal to work with. And this is the animal for day 6 of BOA-MAS. So I hope you enjoyed this video. As a reminder, stay tuned for future titles in the series looking at some of the great locality boas I'm working with. And merry BOA-MAS.